I wasn't supposed to be in that river. Men like me don't fall into water. We own the boats, we buy the land around it. We put our names on the hotels with the river view printed in gold. But that day, the current didn't care who I was. One wrong step on a slippery rock. 1 second of arrogance, and suddenly the world was only noise, brown water, and panic. I remember the weight of my clothes, the taste of mud in my mouth, the awful certainty. This is it. This is how I die. And then, through the blur, I saw him. A young Indigenous man diving toward me with no life jacket, no rope, no camera filming a heroic moment. Just his arms around my chest, his breath against my ear, his voice telling me to stop fighting. He dragged me back to the shore like I weighed nothing. To him, I was just the man who almost drowned. To me, he became something else. The reason I woke up with a second chance. Years later, when the doctors said I didn't have much time left, I made a decision nobody in my family understood. Before we go on, tell me in the comments which country you're watching from. Because what I did after that rescue changed not only his life, but his entire village. I went to that river to feel powerful. It's funny to say that now, but it's true. I was the kind of man who collected places the way other people collected stamps. Photos on yachts, private islands, dinners above city skylines. When my friends talked about getting away, they meant a weekend in some luxury resort. I wanted more. I wanted to be able to say, I went where no one goes. I saw what no one sees. So when someone suggested a raw, untouched Amazon experience, I didn't hesitate. My assistant booked everything: private guide, satellite phone, expensive boots that looked used but weren't. I told everyone I was going to disconnect. In reality, I only wanted a new story to tell at the next boardroom dinner. The morning I almost died was beautiful. The sky was a clear, impossible blue, the kind that makes you think nothing bad can happen under it. The river moved like lazy smoke, brown, wide, calm on the surface. Birds cut the air above us, and somewhere in the trees a howler monkey screamed like a broken trumpet. My guide kept saying, "Careful with the rocks, senor, they're slippery." I nodded, of course. Men like me are used to warnings. We just don't really hear them. I wanted a photo. That was all. One picture of me standing in the middle of the river on a flat rock, arms opened, the jungle behind. I imagined the caption already. Some places remind you how small you are. People would love it. They always loved when I pretended to be humble for the camera. I stepped onto the first rock. It wobbled a little. I laughed. Second rock, wet but solid. I smirked at the guide. "See? No problem." Third rock. I never felt the fourth. My foot slid as if the river had hands and had pulled the ground away. For a moment I was weightless. The next, I was underwater, my world reduced to brown blur and panic. Cold swallowed me whole. The current grabbed my legs, my chest, my arms like invisible fists. I tried to get my head above the surface, but the water spun me. I saw sky, then mud, then sky again. I opened my mouth to scream and swallowed the river. It tasted of soil and leaves and something ancient that did not care who I was. I remember thinking, very clearly, this is ridiculous. I can't die like this. Not here. Not like this. But the river didn't answer. My chest burned. My arms moved without coordination. I felt heavy, as if every share, every building, every car I owned had turned into stones in my pockets. People say your life flashes before your eyes. Mine didn't. Only one thing did: the face of my sister, the last time she had told me I was rushing through life without actually living any of it. Then, suddenly, there were arms around me. Strong, rough, sure arms. One circled my chest from behind, the other reached up, cutting through the water like it belonged there. A voice shouted something I couldn't understand over the roar in my ears. My body twisted, and my face broke the surface. Noise exploded back into the world, the river slapping against us, my guide yelling on the shore, my own lungs dragging in air like it was made of knives. "Don't fight," a voice said near my ear. "Just let me work." I couldn't see his face, but I felt his strength. He was smaller than me, but he moved like the river was part of his body. He kicked, pulled, found the current's weak spots the way I'd learned to find weaknesses in contracts. Slowly, painfully, the water changed from enemy to something neutral again. The mud under my boots suddenly appeared, and we stumbled toward the shore. We collapsed on the wet sand, coughing. I rolled onto my back and stared at the sky. It felt different now, less decorative, more real. My chest burned. My hands were shaking. Part of me wanted to laugh at the absurdity. Another part wanted to cry like a child. "Você respira," the same voice said, softer. "That's what matters." I turned my head. He was young. That was my first thought. Young in the way that still has room for dreams, but with eyes that had already seen more than they should. His skin was the deep brown of earth after rain. Dark hair, long and straight, fell in wet strands around his face and down to his shoulders. Drops of water clung to his eyelashes. He wore a simple shirt clinging to his chest and shorts. No life jacket, no brand, no watch worth more than some people's car. Only a small bead necklace at his collarbone, and the calm look of someone who had done this before. "You," I managed between coughs. "You saved me." He tilted his head, a tiny movement. "The river left you close enough," he said. "I only pulled." The guide rushed over, shouting apologies, explanations, excuses. I heard little. My world had narrowed to the boy, because that's what he was, barely 20 maybe, sitting beside me as if dragging a drowning man back from the river was just another chore. "What's your name?" I asked, still breathless. He hesitated for a second, as if names were something valuable that shouldn't be given away easily. Then he said, "Yuri." "Yuri," I repeated, tasting the syllables like air after suffocation. I know who you are," he interrupted calmly. "The whole region knows. The man from the hotels, from the roads, from the dam they want to build." His voice wasn't accusing. That made it worse. I sat up slowly, dizziness circling my head. "You knew who I was? And still jumped in?" He shrugged. "The river didn't ask your name before it pulled you. Why would I?" I laughed then, not because it was funny, but because something in me cracked. A strange sound escaped my throat, half humor, half desperation. I had spent a lifetime surrounded by people who measured every gesture by profit and loss. And there I was, coughing river water beside a boy who had risked his life for mine without even thinking. "Thank you," I said. The words felt small, ridiculous. "I owe you." He shook his head. "You owe the river. You owe life, not me." Still, my mind did what it had been trained to do. Think in terms of debts, contracts, numbers. How much was a life worth? A promotion? A building? A company? An empire? That night, back at the temporary camp, I couldn't sleep. I lay in a hammock, the fabric creaking under my weight, the jungle alive with noises I had never really heard before. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw brown water and Yuri's hand grabbing me. For the first time, my wealth felt flimsy. I could buy land, but not the ground under the river. I could buy medicine, but not more years than my body was willing to give me. I could buy cameras, advertising, applause, but not the instinct that had made that boy dive without hesitation. The next morning, I went to the village. It wasn't on any of my project maps. On those, this area was just buffer zone. Trees, water. Empty, according to the documents that helped us sleep at night. But in reality, it was full of children running barefoot, women laughing while washing clothes, men repairing boats, elders sitting in the shade telling stories that didn't need screens. They watched me arrive, the stranger in expensive boots, with the same caution one reserves for a storm. Yuri stood near one of the houses, arms crossed, expression unreadable. I walked up to him feeling clumsy, heavy, wrong in every possible way. I had faced bankers, politicians, judges without blinking, yet in front of that boy, I struggled to find words. "I want to thank you," I said, properly. "You already did," he replied. "You're breathing." I shook my head. "No, I mean, I want to do something for you, for this place." He narrowed his eyes, just a little, not with greed, with suspicion. "We know what your some things look like," he said. "Roads that cut the forest, dams that stop the fish, hotels that change the river's name on a brochure." The words hit like cold water, but they were deserved. "I'm not talking about another project," I said quietly. "I'm talking about paying back a debt I don't know how to measure." He studied me silently. Around us, life went on. A baby cried somewhere. Someone laughed at a joke I didn't understand. Smoke rose from a fire carrying the smell of food and normality. "It was just a rescue," he said at last. "Not for me," I thought. For me, it was the crack that would split my life into before and after. I didn't know then how deep that crack would go. I didn't know that years later, in a cold hospital room far from that river, his name would be the only one that made sense in my will. I only knew one thing. An Indigenous boy had saved my life, and whether he wanted it or not, I was going to change his. I left the village that day with dry clothes and a wet mind. On the boat back to the town, the guide talked about schedules, fuel, the next stops in our experience package. I didn't hear a word. My hands still felt the river. My ribs still carried the ghost of Yuri's grip. When we reached the little port, someone from the crew brought me a towel, coffee, a satellite phone. The world rushed back in like a noisy elevator. "Your office has been calling non-stop, senor," my assistant said through the crackling line. "They heard about some incident. Are you all right?" "I'm alive," I replied. "That's more than I deserve today." They laughed politely. No one asked why I said it that way. Back in the city, the river followed me like a shadow. I returned to meetings, deals, dinners. People clapped when I entered rooms, not because they loved me, but because my presence meant money. They made jokes about my Amazon adventure, exaggerated the story of the near drowning before I could stop them. "Almost died, can you believe it?" One partner laughed at a party. "Imagine the headlines. Billionaire vanishes in jungle. Good thing he floats, right?" I smiled on cue. I knew how to play my role. But every time someone joked about it, all I could see was brown water closing over my head and a boy's hand dragging me back. I tried to send money to the village. The first transfer bounced back. "There is no account in that name," my secretary said. "They don't even have a bank branch there. Do you want us to donate to some charity instead? There are NGOs working in that area." I almost said yes. It would have been easy, clean, efficient. But easy was exactly what had almost killed me. "No," I said. "Keep it. I'll think of something else." Months turned into years. I didn't stop being who I had been. Men like me don't shed their skin overnight. I still made deals. I still smiled in photos. I still sat at tables where land was lines on a map and people were communities to be handled. But something had shifted. A small resistance inside me, an irritation whenever I heard someone say empty land, or they don't use it anyway. Once, during a presentation, a young executive pointed at an area on a projected map. "This segment here is perfect," he said. "No big cities, low resistance, mostly rural. Some indigenous lands, but nothing organized." "Indigenous lands are never nothing," I cut in, sharper than I meant to. The room went quiet. Someone coughed. The executive blinked, confused. "Of course, senor," he stammered. "I only meant, low legal complication." I dismissed him with a nod. The meeting went on. The machine kept moving, but part of me was no longer fully inside it. At night, I started reading reports, histories, complaints I had previously handed to lawyers with the casual instruction, "Deal with this." I saw my name appear in places I wish it hadn't. I saw villages described as obstacles. I saw rivers mentioned as resources to be exploited, and every time I remembered Yuri saying, "You owe the river, you owe life, not me." The first heart attack came quietly. No dramatic collapse in the middle of a negotiation. No heroic rescue. Just a tightness while I was brushing my teeth, a small pain that crawled up my chest and sat behind my ribs like a hand squeezing my heart. I sat on the edge of the bathtub, sweat cold on my forehead. The house was silent. For a moment I thought, not like this, not in this cold bathroom. The doctors did what they do, pills, machines, recommendations. "You've pushed your body hard for a long time, senor," one of them said, with that professional tone that tries to sound neutral and fails. "You need to change your priorities. Stress, food, travel. Your heart is telling you it's tired." I wanted to laugh. My heart had been tired long before my arteries knew it. After the attack, my calendar changed. Not much, just enough to pretend I'd listened. Fewer flights, more online meetings, a nutritionist, a trainer who smiled too much. But something else changed too. I started visiting the village again. Not with cameras, not with journalists, alone. Sometimes I went for a day, sometimes for a weekend. I didn't always announce it. I arrived with small things that city people think are generous: medicine, tools, supplies. They accepted some, refused others. "This we need," they would say. "This we don't." They never bowed. They never thanked me like I was a king. That, more than anything, kept me coming back. Yuri was growing into a man. His shoulders wider, his voice deeper, his gaze even steadier. He laughed more easily than I did, but when he spoke about the land, his tone was serious enough to make anyone listen. "The city is getting closer," he told me once as we walked by the river. "Your roads bring doctors and food, but they also bring men who drink and fight, garbage, people who think we are a tourist attraction." "You think we shouldn't build anything?" I asked. "I think your world doesn't know how to build without breaking first," he said simply. His words stayed with me longer than the taste of any expensive wine. The second heart attack wasn't so kind. I woke in a white room that smelled of metal and disinfectant, with machines beeping in steady, indifferent rhythms. A nurse adjusted tubes. A doctor explained something about damage, prognoses, lifestyle. They always say, lifestyle, like it's a piece of furniture you can move. This time there was no, "if you don't change." There was only, "You should get your affairs in order. We don't know how long you have, but it's less than you think." People imagine that moment as a thunderclap. In reality, it felt more like a door quietly closing at the end of a hallway. I didn't panic. I didn't scream. I just understood. All the buildings with my name on them. All the accounts. All the cars. The watches. The houses by the sea. None of them would fit in the box they would put me in when this was over. I had spent a lifetime signing contracts. Now there was one contract left to write: my will. My lawyers were ready. They had drafts prepared, percentages, foundations, trusts. They assumed the usual distribution, a bit for charity, a lot for the family, something symbolic for employees, so the press could call me generous when I died. I let them talk. I let them show slides, charts, bullet points. Then I said, "No." They stopped. "I want to do it differently," I continued. "And I want what I'm about to say recorded, word for word." It took months. Negotiations, legal gymnastics, arguments with my own blood. My sister thought I was delirious. "You're going to throw everything away on strangers in the forest?" she cried. "They're not strangers," I said. "One of them saved my life. The rest have paid for my business decisions more than anyone should." My nephews looked at me like I had stolen their toys. One of them actually shouted, "You owe it to us, not to them." I looked at his soft hands, his untouched face, his phone worth more than some families' houses, and I realized that in a way, they were right. I did owe them something. I owed them a better example than the one I had given most of my life. So I told the lawyers what I wanted: a school, a clinic, infrastructure that the government always promised but never delivered. Not in my name, in theirs, managed as much as possible by them. "And your heirs, senor?" the main lawyer kept insisting. "They will contest. This fortune is monumental. They'll have enough," I replied. "I'm not leaving them homeless. They just won't get everything they expected for doing nothing." "But why tie so much of it to one village?" he asked, genuinely confused. "Because one indigenous boy had jumped into a river for a man whose companies threatened his land. Because his people had welcomed me, the enemy, and fed me when they owed me nothing. because for once in my life I wanted the scales to tip, even a little, in their favor. But I didn't say all that. I only said, because that's where my life was given back to me. Then came the condition. It was my idea. My ego, perhaps, refusing to let go completely. Or maybe it was the only way I knew to ensure they would really want it. The assets can only be transferred, I told the lawyer, if the beneficiary, Yuri, accepts one thing. What thing? He must come to the city, I said slowly, feeling the weight of each word. He must sit at the negotiation table with my board and my heirs. He must look them in the eye and decide in person what he wants this fortune to do. No intermediaries, no representatives, no one speaking for him. That will be intimidating, the lawyer said. Yes, I replied, for everyone. And if he refuses? Then the money goes to a foundation in his people's name, I answered. Still for the village, but without his direct say. So you're making your entire fortune conditional on the decision of one indigenous man who might not even want it? I thought of Yuri's voice by the river. You owe life, not me. Yes, I said. Exactly. I didn't live to see what happened next. The heart does not sign extensions. But I knew one thing as I felt my time thinning like paper. One day, a stranger would arrive at that village. Not a tourist, not an investor. Someone carrying my name, and an impossible choice for the man who once pulled me out of the river. The day the stranger came, the river was low. Dry season. Heat pressing on the roofs, children's feet kicking up red dust as they ran. From the outside, it looked like any other afternoon. Yuri was mending a net in the shade of a mango tree. His hands moved automatically, tying and tightening, while his mind traveled elsewhere. He still thought about that day in the river sometimes. Not about the man he saved. People in the city had enough people thinking about him. But about the choice he had made without thinking. You dive or you don't. Some decisions don't wait for meetings. He had not seen the man for years. Visits had become rare, then stopped. Rumors reached the village slowly. A heart attack, then another. A photo in a newspaper someone brought from town, black ribbon in the corner. Você salvou homem importante, some people told him. Yuri always answered the same. I saved a life. Important is something the city invents. A distant engine broke the rhythm of the day. At first no one paid attention. Trucks sometimes passed, carrying supplies, fuel, promises. But this noise was different. Lower, heavier. A car built to slide over asphalt, not mud. The children noticed first. Carro Grande, one shouted, pointing. The SUV appeared at the end of the dirt road, glossy and black, even under the dust. It moved slowly, as if the driver were afraid of scratching it on reality. Dogs barked. Women paused their conversations. A few men stood up, instinctively putting themselves between the vehicle and the center of the village. The car stopped in the open space near the meeting tree. The engine died. For a moment, the village heard only its own heart again. River, wind, chickens, someone laughing nervously. Two men stepped out. The first was tall, in his 40s maybe, with a city face. Tired, careful, edges softened by air conditioning. He wore a light shirt, sleeves rolled up, pants too clean for that kind of road, shoes already regretting the dust. Under his arm, a leather folder swollen with paper. The second was younger, holding a small camera, not to film like a vulture, but hanging loosely as if he'd brought it, just in case. His eyes scanned everything. Huts, children, the river, the way people watched. No politician, Yuri thought. No missionary. No TV. Lawyer, maybe. Janaina, the elder, stepped forward. She didn't speak first. She never did. She waited. In this land, the one who rushes to fill silence usually reveals more than they should. Boa tarde, the older man said, voice formal but not arrogant. May we speak with you? That depends, Janaina answered. Why are you here? He looked around as if searching for something, or someone. I'm looking for a man named Yuri, he said at last. I was sent here. For him. A small ripple passed through the villagers. Heads turned instinctively toward the mango tree. Yuri stood slowly, The net slid from his hands. "I'm Yuri," he said. "What do you want with me?" The man studied him with a kind of quiet curiosity, not like someone evaluating a servant, more like someone trying to match a face to a story he had heard many times. "My name is Augusto," he said. "I was a lawyer for—" He stopped, corrected himself. "I worked for the man you once saved in this river." No one said the rich man's name out loud, but everyone knew who he meant. The man of the hotels, of the roads, of the dam plans. The one who almost drowned, a child whispered. The one who owned everything, someone else added. "The one who died," Yuri said simply. "Yes," Augusto nodded. "The one who died." He opened the folder carefully, like something alive might jump out. "He left something behind for you," he continued. "For you, and for this village." No one clapped. No one smiled. The air thickened. Money did not arrive here as a blessing. It arrived as a question. "Talk under the tree," Janaina said. "In the shade, words are less hot." They gathered under the big trunk. The lawyer sat only when everyone else was seated. He wiped sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief, adjusted his glasses, then pulled out a document thick enough to make its own shadow. "In his will," Augusto began, "your name appears many times, Yuri. He spoke of you often, how you saved him, how you refused to accept debt, how this place changed the way he saw everything." Some of the villagers shifted, uncomfortable. They didn't like being part of someone else's confession. "He was a complicated man," Augusto admitted. "I won't pretend he was a saint. Your people know what his companies did around here. He knew it too in the end." He placed the first page on his lap. But he also knew one thing. He wouldn't have lived long enough to realize any of that, if you hadn't jumped into the river that day. Yuri felt all eyes on him. He looked at the ground instead. "I did what anyone would do," he murmured. "Not everyone," Augusto said quietly. "I've met rich men who wouldn't give a glass of water to someone drowning in their own pool if there wasn't a camera nearby." A few chuckles escaped around the circle. Even in tension, truth knew how to find a laugh. He decided, Augusto continued, that the only way to even begin repaying that was to give you what he valued most in life. "His time?" someone asked. "His land?" another suggested. "His hotels?" a child guessed, eyes wide. "His control?" Janaina muttered. Augusto smiled, sad and small. "His fortune," he said. "A very large part of it. More than most of us will ever see even on paper." The word hung there, fortune, like a piece of meat thrown in a circle full of people who had learned to survive on crumbs. But no one jumped. "What does that mean exactly?" Yuri asked. His voice was steady, but his heart beat so hard he could feel it in his gums. "It means," Augusto said, "enough money to build and maintain a proper school, a clinic, basic sanitation, communication, to buy land around here so no one touches it, to set up a fund that generates income for your community every year. If managed well, it could give your children and grandchildren a safety they've never had." A murmur spread. School, clinic, security. Words that usually arrived with strings attached. "There is a condition," Augusto added. Of course there is, Yuri thought. Rivers don't give without taking something. Why would a rich man's ghost be different? Janaina leaned forward. "Say it clearly," she said. "We don't fear words, only lies." "The inheritance linked directly to Yuri," Augusto explained, "only becomes active if he agrees to something your friend wanted very strongly." "Friend?" someone repeated quietly, almost tasting the word. "He wanted Yuri to come to the city," Augusto said, "to sit at the same table where decisions were always made about people like you, never with you. He wanted Yuri to be the one to decide in person, with full information, how this money would be used for the village. No representative, no intermediary. He believed that if the power he once held was to change hands, it should pass through the eyes of the man who once refused to see himself as owed anything." Silence. Yuri felt as if the ground had tilted slightly. The city, contracts, negotiations, not his world. "What if I refuse?" he asked. "If you refuse," Augusto said, "the money does not disappear. It goes into a foundation in your people's name, still for projects here, but you won't be the one making the decisions. Others will decide on your behalf. People like me, like his board, like your government, eventually. It was as if the dead man's hand had reached across years to place a stone on Yuri's chest. So he wants to pull me into the world that broke ours, Yuri said, not angrily, just naming what he saw. I think, Augusto replied carefully, he wanted to force that world to look into your eyes for once, and not through a screen or a report. Voices rose around them, some excited, some afraid. You have to go, a young man insisted. With that kind of money, our children never go hungry again. We get a doctor here. We get teachers. And what does the city take in exchange? An elder asked. Our time, our language, our way of seeing the world. We're not for sale, another man snapped. No one said we are, a woman countered. But if we don't accept help when it comes, we keep burying our sick because the hospital is too far. The debate heated like midday. Arguments flew like mosquitoes, some harmless, some carrying invisible poisons. In the middle of it, Yuri sat very still. He remembered the cold of the river, the weight of a stranger's body in his arms. He remembered the way the man had looked at the village in the early days, like a project, and then later, like a mirror. He remembered the sentence, "You owe life, not me." And then another, "Because that's where my life was given back to me." Enough, Janaina said at last. We're choking on words. Let the one who was named decide. Then we decide with him what that means. Dozens of eyes turned to Yuri. Fear crawled up his spine, but so did something else. The same feeling he'd had the day he ran into the river without thinking. You dive, or you don't. He stood. I don't trust the city, he began. I don't trust men in suits who think our land is empty. I don't trust money that comes late after so much has been taken. A few nodded. But I also don't trust leaving decisions about our future in the hands of people who've never seen this river. He continued. If someone is going to decide what that man's fortune does in our name, I would rather it be someone who knows what it feels like to swallow this water and think it's the last breath. He looked at Augusto. I will go, he said. I'll sit at your table. I'll hear what they want, and I'll tell them what we want. Not as a favor, not as a beggar, but as someone whose life they already owe more than money can pay. And if they treat you like a curiosity? An elder asked. Then I walk out, Yuri replied, and the river keeps being our only bank, like it always was. Janaina's eyes shone, not with tears, but with a fierce, quiet pride. Then we prepare you, she said. No one goes to war without knowing how to aim. You won't go to that city to be impressed. You'll go to remind them that we exist. Augusto closed the folder slowly. For the first time in years, he felt like he might be part of something that wasn't just paperwork. When you're ready, he said, I'll take you there. Yuri looked at the river flowing indifferent through time. A rich man had tried to repay a debt by throwing his fortune at the place where his fear had almost swallowed him. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't clean, it wasn't saintly, but it was a crack in a wall that had stood for too long. I didn't save him for this, Yuri thought. I saved him because no one should die like that. And yet, here he was, facing a choice built on that moment. He scooped a handful of river water and let it drip back through his fingers. Fine, he whispered, more to the current than to anyone else. One more dive. Far away in a city where his name was written on marble, a dead man's will waited on a table. In the village, under a sky no glass tower could ever frame, an indigenous man about to choose for his people took his first step toward a world that had always spoken about him and was finally going to have to listen to him.